If you would have asked me 2 months ago, I would have told you it was impossible for them to invent something more boring than my social studies class. Turns out, I was wrong. Virtual social studies on a Zoom call with Mr. Hardesty is even worse. Because with the real class, I at least got to see my best friends, Sinclair and Podge. In fact, the last time I saw them in person was a month ago, the day of the protests. Ever since then, the police have been vocal that nobody should attempt to investigate the clown attacks on their own. So naturally, we had a plan to investigate things on our own. While Mr. Hardesty was droning on about, honestly, I didn't even know what, Sinclair, Podge, and I were chatting in a separate window on Discord. We had a plan to get some information. See, while Podge and I aren't exactly model students, Calvin Sinclair is kind of a genius. He'd been doing some of his own research and was filling us in on his findings. He explained things in our private chat. So I started by pulling as many articles as I could find, creating a database of all the attacks. From there, I mapped everything to get a visual idea of where these incidents are happening. I was hoping to find a higher concentration somewhere and maybe be able to determine the source. Podge asked him if we could see his map, and he sent over an image. I opened it up and immediately saw the pattern. The synapses in my brain were firing off, and I was ready to reveal my discovery. No, of course not. I basically had no idea what I was looking at. What do I look like, Bill Gates? As far as I could tell, it looked like there were attacks scattered all around the country. Other than the fact that bigger cities and their suburbs seemed like more likely targets, there was no real pattern that I could discern. Sinclair asked us if we noticed anything about the map, and when we had no idea, he went on to inform us that he had 2 major takeaways from it.
Excuse me, who is that? Who just joined right now?
That was the voice of my teacher, Mr. Hardesty. Apparently, someone had joined the call, and he was trying to figure out who it was. The person had their camera off and was making a rather loud sound over the mic. It sounded like some kind of machine part, or like a camera zooming in and out. The username was just Eris. I don't know anyone at our school named Eris. And that was the moment I knew we were being eavesdropped by a clown. I grabbed the nearest weapon I could find. No, of course not. It was obviously one of those pranks you see online where people hack into a video conference and create havoc. I had heard the security on this program is basically non-existent, but this would have been the first such intrusion that I had experienced. Despite thinking it was a prank, there was something about that noise that I found kind of creepy. Maybe this class was about to actually be interesting. However, after a few minutes of nothing happening, Eris left, and I turned my attention back to our private Discord chat, where Sinclair would explain his findings from mapping the data. The first major takeaway was not what I expected. He told us that all of the attacks had taken place in the US, meaning that the clown attacks happening around the country were probably from an American organization. The second was more the type of observation I'd expected him to say. He showed us that all of the points on the map could be connected by major highways, and provided another graphic with this linear connection to all the affected schools. Not realizing I was onto something, I told him that it looked like one of those tour maps you see on a band's website, or at least one of those tour maps you used to see on band websites before organizers started canceling all their tours in fear of being the future targets of clown lockdowns. The situation had really turned from paranoia to hysteria when the clown attacks spread from just happening in classrooms to the point that they affected football games, stage plays, and even school band concerts, which eventually led any tours or concerts where kids would be in attendance to be shut down. Sinclair told me he made the same connection about the map because, of course he did. He had already pulled the data from thousands of tours that had taken place from 2018 when the attack started to get bad until now. Apparently, these ticket broker websites also did not have the most secure information. So he was basically able to lay these tour maps on top of our map and see which ones looked similar. That narrowed our search down to 97 music acts, 16 book tours, 7 YouTuber tour things, 31 comedy shows, 4 traveling magicians, and 3 countrywide circus tours. Furthermore, all 3 circus tours were put on by the same company, an operation by the name of Parc du Soleil. Apparently, that was as much research as Sinclair had time for, but he wanted to share that with us. Our obvious next step would be to look into this Parc du Soleil. I heard the garage door open. Must have been my dad getting home. I figured I'd better look like I'm paying attention to this class when he gets in here, so I minimized our Discord chat and brought back up the Zoom lecture.
Some to question whether the 1975 Regulations Act was still effective years after. Excuse me, who is making that sound?
It was that zooming sound that we'd heard earlier, the one that was coming from the Eris account. Only that account was no longer in the call. I scanned through the class on my screen, and it was indicating that the sound was coming from Calvin Sinclair's microphone. He was looking around as if trying to determine the source of the noise. I saw him typing and heard the familiar notification sound. I flipped back to our private chat. He was telling us he could hear the sound in his house now, which was kind of freaking him out. My dad came into the house from the garage, so I switched back to the class, and as I did so, I noticed someone was standing behind Sinclair. Only it wasn't a family member, at least as far as I could tell. The person was wearing a yellow clown suit. Before I could say or do anything, I saw the clown lower its head, even with Sinclair, so that it was in the frame, and we could all see the bionic eye and robotic jawline that amplified the already terrifying appearance of the red and white face-painted nightmare character. I once more heard that unsettling sound as the bionic eye zoomed back out. Since it was now right next to my friend's head, it startled him, and he jumped away from it as he realized how close the intruder really was. But in that same moment, the clown's robotic jaw opened and emitted a purple gas substance into my friend's face, which he immediately started choking on as he fell out of the frame. The entire class was frozen with shocked looks on their faces. It would have been easy for Mr. Hardesty to chalk this up to an elaborate prank, but given the climate of recent events, he sat there, stunned, probably not able to process what he should say or do. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest in the short moments that this all went down. But what would happen next would cause it to sink into a place in my chest that I had never felt it before. One more time, we all heard the zoom-in sound of the clown's bionic eye as it took control of Calvin's computer and furiously typed away, as if it were someone urgently trying to write down an idea before the moment passed. His screen then glitched before going black. Seeing the look of fear on my teacher's face was strangely unsettling. Maybe it was the idea that he's supposed to be an authority figure, and he's supposed to know what to do when something bad happens, and he didn't. Or maybe it was the fact that we were no longer safe anywhere, even inside of our own homes. Either way, I can never forget the look that he had. The rest of the class was cancelled, and Podge and I desperately tried to contact Sinclair to see if he was okay. We mulled over the idea of showing up to get answers. The police had obviously been called, so it seemed like a safe place to be, but I think we both feared for the worst. We had just about decided on a plan when I heard something that made me freeze. I slowly turned in horror to see that there was someone standing at my window. The same clown that had attacked Sinclair 30 minutes ago was now coming after me. My head spun and my insides did somersaults. I realized what must have happened. It was somehow using the computers to find us in real life. It started when Eris had joined the Zoom call. That's when it found Sinclair's location. Then it used his computer to get to the next in line, which may have been me. Or maybe there was one before me, who even knows at this point. In a panic, I fumbled my way out of the chair, knocking it over as I did so. I didn't turn my back on the cyber clown, which caused me to go full horror movie protagonist and slip and stumble my way away from the window. But it was also the reason that I was looking in that direction when something lashed out from outside the window frame and struck the clown around its left eye, the non-bionic one. The clown let out an inhuman scream and fell to the ground. That's when I saw my dad, wielding an old hockey stick from the garage. He whacked the clown several times on the ground. On the third hit, the stick seemed to get caught on something and stuck in place. He tried to pull it back and finally pulled it hard enough for the blade to break away from the handle. We would later find the blade totally deformed in the yard, as if it were a chewed up toothpick. My dad came back inside and locked us in the basement as he called the police. We didn't see the cyber clown again. The police showed up, collected the evidence, and that was about it, as they were probably off to go make a report on the next clown attack. I tried to listen in the short time they were there. One of them mentioned something about the mayor planning to issue a mandatory stay-at-home order for all kids, and how that idea wasn't going to do much good if the attacks are now happening in residential neighborhoods. We never found out what happened to Sinclair. He's still missing. Things have only gotten worse. I talked to Podge again tonight. He too was shaken, but we both agreed that the police weren't doing enough. We wanted to continue the investigation that Sinclair started, and that began with looking into the circus, Parc du Soleil. We found out that it was started in the mid-2000s by a guy named Otis Park, so that's where our search would have to begin. I haven't seen another clown since that day, but sometimes, in the dead of night, I still think I hear that sound. Thanks for listening to all Dente Creepypasta. Your total today comes out to $19.75, but if you like this video right now, I'll waive that fee and give you everything you just listened to absolutely free. Remember to subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week, ring that death bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next one, assuming we both survive.